We're live. We're live. It's happening. We're doing it. It's real. Let's take my name off because I don't need that. Where is it? There it is.
Hello.
Boink. Hello. We have no viewers right now, but that's okay. So I'm drinking a pint of pedigree water.
And I have Good Morning Sunshine.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
2:30.
It is 2:30, but sometimes it feels like it's like good morning at 2:30 in the afternoon.
You know what? We are living Aboriginal dream time.
We are. I think that might be an insult to the Aboriginal people, but yes, I kind of agree. Yeah.
Well, meaning that it's almost as if, like, my clock. Look, my clock. Wait a minute.
Hang on, I'll make you big screen.
The clock.
Yes.
The clock stopped right when it all started, and I was sick. I don't believe I had COVID, but I was sick like 5 weeks, and the clock stopped during that time, and I decided I wasn't winding it up again until the stuff is over.
That's a good idea. We do have viewers. We got Tom from
Jane. Hello, Jane.
And we got Tom Davis, who is from
Tom.
the Woodruff Stone Soup Storytelling Festival. He's a great guy.
Oh, you've been to Stone Soup.
And Via Good.
Via, hello.
Howdy, so goody to see you.
Today is Simon's birthday, everyone.
It is. It's a poorly kept secret.
It is a poorly kept secret.
Anyone on Facebook knows.
Oh, well, happy birthday. I think you should all wish him some happy birthday, howdy do's.
Oh, Karen's there as well. Karen Page Davis. Yay. Hi, Karen.
Hello, Karen.
Hey, Tom.
So I talked to you about maybe asking you some questions.
I know.
Since it's your birthday. I'm so excited to be one of your Friday friends.
Well, I know. Well, you're one of I think you were my first one, but then you said something inappropriate and I had to delete it immediately.
Stop. Just stop. I can leave this thing.
You can. Then I'll have to tell stories. And I don't think people will mind if you leave and I tell stories. They might be disappointed.
No, they won't mind a bit. Yeah, I could do that, and then you could just tell stories.
No. I want to chat with you.
I want to chat with you too. We had fun that first time. Yeah,
we did. We always have fun. I mean, that's one of the great. I think that one of the great things about. So I gotta say, because we'd emailed each other a fraction before Timpanogos, and that was it.
I had never met you. Yes.
Right. And I wasn't even sure if you'd even heard of me.
I had heard of you, but I'd never seen you. And then for those of you out there, those of us who occasionally or prolifically tell stories, especially in the North American, and international, but in the North American circuit, there are festivals all over the country for storytellers. And sometimes we are with people we know well. Sometimes we are with people we haven't seen. And you can imagine there are times that years can go by and you don't see the same people, or you don't meet new people that have been telling for a long time. So, and I work more as a children's author, so I only, go to a few festivals, although I love them. But I got to hear you at TIMP, and it blew me away. And I am one cranky old buzzard. I've been waiting.
Yeah, I was so intimidated because you're like this
ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Anyway, I'm ignoring that.
Okay.
So for those of you that are out there who love Simon, you can imagine I'd never heard him. We were sharing a stage. Which one of us went first?
I did.
I think you did. Yes,
I did, because I did the story of the three feathers. It
was fabulous. So that brings me to this. I really, really, really would love, since it's your birthday, give you a little break, and just for a little portion of this, ask you questions.
Okay, we'll do that.
All right. So my first question is going to be really just, your basic sort of biographical stuff. You were born where?
I was born in a town called Tufnell, which is in the Black Country.
Tufnell?
Tufnell.
Hey. All right.
Right, which is near Wolverhampton. Black Country because it was a major industrial city, and everything was covered in soot. So all the buildings were black. You go outside, you'd be covered in soot by the time you got home, and so it was given a nickname called the Black Country, because if you went there, everything turned black.
And then a simple question: where were you born? And you just told me a story.
I did, and then
but I'm just saying. All right.
And then when I was very little.
All right. Do you have siblings?
And then I moved to then we moved to Worcester.
You have siblings?
I do have siblings. I have a brother called Colin, and he's freaking awesome. He's taller than me, much taller than me. I'm a shorty, and I have a half brother and a half sister, and I kind of joke that together they make a whole human being. But I do love them dearly. We're very close. We're a very tight family.
There are 3 of you, and you are the one stateside, correct?
No, we're all born in the UK.
No, but you're the only one that's in the US right now.
Oh, right. Yes, I am.
So
I am.
Let's switch from it. So
hang on. I also have a blood brother called Billy, and he lived with my family for a long time, and I consider him a brother because he went through a lot of the stuff with us.
Okay.
And
that's
so
wonderful.
yeah, there's my friend Billy as well.
You really have 3 siblings. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So you have a lovely wife and 2 children?
I do. Yes, one of each. A 20-year-old boy.
What are the children? Yeah, I know.
So
I need more coffee. Okay.
Yes, yeah, I need more water. So a girl and a boy. 20-year-old boy and a 15-year-old girl.
All right. Lovely.
They're brilliant kids. They're super duper kids.
All right. And now I want to ask you something about stories. So one of the things I noticed, because I just wanted just a nickel's worth about you, and now I want to know this, because I think as tellers, we're not often asked about our craft. We talk to one another about the craft with a manner of assumptions, because they're things that we already know. So why bring them up? But for someone who may not know what we do, or see it only in the context of the completed piece. Many listeners don't realize that a piece that may be 30 minutes long could take up to 3 or 6 months or longer to create.
To work on, yeah, absolutely.
So my first question, this is all about just story, if I may.
Yeah.
Do you choose the story? Does it choose you?
I think it's probably a mixture of both. There are some stories that I really like, but the majority of them choose me. And I'm reading a book. No, maybe it's not. Maybe the story does choose me all the time, and I just think that I'm choosing it. But yeah,
everyone's different.
There's a lot of stories that kind of like jump out and like me, tell me, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's such a great story. I got to tell that.
And does it just stay in your head and nag at you? Because I know for me that happens a lot.
Yeah. There are some stories that I've read. I mean, a good example of that. Hang on, I got to think of the story. There was a story that I couldn't tell for the longest time, and it was like I really liked it, but I just couldn't tell it. But it stayed in my head and it rattled around in there. And then it was just like, I got to tell this story. And I sat down and then it just came out. And I don't know what happened, whether it was some sort of life event that I had to go through before I could tell it with authenticity, with realism. It was just a bit weird, but yeah.
Well, no. I've got my finger going like this because as you're saying that was my next question was, are there any stories that you feel chose you, or you chose them, you loved them, but every time you put them in your mouth and tried to tell them, they just didn't work. Yeah. It was like an ill-fitting garment.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you have to actually take it apart and redo the sleeves and change out the buttons from pewter to gold, or maybe to wood, or maybe you have to have it tailored around the waist or let out. Those of us who are middle-aged.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more about that. What do you do when there's a story that you haven't, that you really want, but it's not working? Part of what I heard is you just let it sit, but I want to hear more.
Right. Okay. So Beowulf is a prime example of this. I have always loved Beowulf. Ever since it's an incredible story. I mean, it's a little bit like, but there's a lot. there's a lot going on in it, right?
Yes, it's
And
massive in every definition.
yeah. And so I sat down and I mean, I have like 5 or 8 different translations of it, and the translations are really subtle, but sometimes there'll be something that comes out of a certain phrase that doesn't come out in another translation. And so I've read those, and I've read kids' versions of it, really simple versions of it, and Ted Hughes's translation, which is freaking awesome. And I still haven't been able to tell it. I've written it, I've spent months writing it out. That's my process, is that I'll find a story and then I'll put it into my own vocabulary, my own vernacular. And
it's fabulous. May I just interject?
What?
Which is fabulous.
Oh, yes. Okay, thank you.
Part of what I love about your telling is the vocabulary.
Oh, thank you.
Keep going. I'm going to tell you something my dad told me, by the way. Finish that.
All right. And so it's still a story that I haven't been able to tell. I haven't meshed with it, but it's a story that I absolutely love. And then I heard Odds Bodkin tell it.
Oh.
And his version is kind of like that. If I was going to do it, that would be how I would do it. And so I have now, I don't need to do it because.
No, stop. That's exactly what we don't say to people. You don't get it to children because no one is you. No one has had that particular amalgamation of experiences, biology, psychology that created the one and unique you. So even if you love his version, well, I'm going to tell you something my dad said to me. Okay. And it's about that big, but in my head, it's the importance of it has grown to be this big. This was 30 years ago. I just started telling, and I was working on a story that wasn't working. So I went to my pop because he was just an innate, as in from the motherboard kind of storyteller. And he was a quiet storyteller. He would sit at any gathering and people would sort of come around him and they'd ask him questions, or they'd ask him, could you tell us the one about, and he never had to raise his voice. Soon the entire room was quiet. And he was not, he was a very, very interesting person. The grandkids call him Yoda.
Oh, really? Nice.
Old he is, wise he is. And funny, wicked funny. But anyway, so I asked him this question. I said, Pop, can you help me with this story? He said, tell it to me. So I tell it to him. And when I'm finished, I can see him, he's cogitating. And I'm like, Dad, anything will help. And he says, I have it. And I thought, oh my God, he's got the answer to why I can't tell this story. And of course, you and I both know, if we know story, he's not going to give me the answer. Mentors never give you an answer.
Right.
What he said was, I understand. You have not lived long enough yet.
Yeah.
I'm like, ugh! That's not what I wanted to hear.
You gotta be old and
no, it was only like 5 years later I was able to get that story cobbled. There was something, he wasn't saying that I even needed that many more rounds, turns around the sun. I think what he meant was, you have not lived enough of what that story is about to understand it well enough to tell it.
Right.
And, and I think when we love a story, it's like sort of wrestling the biblical angel for a blessing. Don't let go, don't let go, don't let go is the only thing that works. And I've got a couple. There's a story I love and I cannot tell. And it's a wonderful fairy tale. And fairy tales make up 3/4 of my stories. So I'm going to go back to you a minute.
Okay.
Or 20. So your preference, fairy tales, folk tales, do you tell personal stories at all?
The only time I tell two.
Fairy tales and folk tales. Just talk a little bit about that.
Folk and fairy tales are my favorite. And there's it's a mixture of both.
What do you love about them?
Oh, there's magic in them, and I love magic. Even if there's not magic in them, I think they speak to me in a way that personal narrative stories don't. There are, like
make a comment here because it's pertinent to this. When I have told in the UK in the past, Festival in Wales, Beyond the Border, and so forth, and I've been to London. the English, the Irish, Scots, they have a kind of an aversion to personal stories because, and it's cultural, and it explained to me, and I understood it perfectly, because it seems so braggy.
Yeah.
So precious. I'm so important that let me tell you about my life. Whereas here, the tradition of, I don't have the time to. Yeah, no. Well, no, because I actually didn't start with
I know.
I started with fairy tales and folk tales. I didn't begin telling, and that was in '89, and I was at 89, 90, and then it was in Jonesboro in '95. And then by then I had started to tell personal stories because I was telling them for All Things Considered on NPR, and cultural, personal stories. That's why I started telling those, and I was telling them like in little festivals, any place for a nickel.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So anyway, I just think if the viewers don't understand that was a fascinating thing to learn. That if and when I should ever, go back to the UK as a teller, I would only go with not personal, but with fairy tales and folktales.
Yeah.
And when I heard you, I just thought, this is what I love. This is what I love. And because I think a lot of American tellers try and make these fairy tales and folktales, when you say magical, they try to make them precious. We try to make them like, oh, and the gnome and the ogre when really, when I hear UK tellers, they make these characters sound like they could be just outside your door.
Yeah. And that's, yeah.
Oh, the old crone or the wee people,
Yeah.
I've been going to Liz Weir's get together on Saturday, which is so fabulous. And just listening, and they're wonderful. But anyway, but you so that you love fairy and folk. You don't do personal ever?
Well, no, there are 3 stories that I've told, personal narrative stories. One of them I've only told once, and I'll probably never tell it again. It was about my experience as an immigrant coming into this country, which was, archaic, shall we say, at the time. And the other 2 stories I tell usually when I'm doing workshops. And if we're doing workshops and we only have a short amount of time, then I'll ask the kids to do personal narrative stories. And so what I do is I share a story of something that happened to me. So if it's young kids, it's about when I was, actually, I think I got a picture of it right here. When I was a kid, one of our neighbors got a brand new bike, and it was a Tomahawk, which had the banana seat, and it had the big cow horn handlebars, and it was brand new. And my bike, which my stepdad didn't want to update at all, had no brakes. And so
that's good. Yeah. Right. There's your story right there.
Right. And it is. So I'm bombing down this road on this kid's bike. This was brand new. We were all lining up to take a go on it. And I hit the brakes because his car was backing out the drive. And I fly through the handlebars.
Oh.
And I kiss the sidewalk, and I get this chip in my teeth. And the car's like 200 yards away. But, because it's I'm used to braking and the bike going. So I tell that story to the little kids, and to the older kids, it's about my first French kiss. And it's the difference between 8th grade and 9th grade.
You don't.
And no, I do. I do. With older kids, I do. Like at high school. Because there was this girl that I was madly in love with called Karen Hardwick, and she was dating this guy who was a good friend of mine. Well, I really liked him, a guy called Mark Playden. And he was kind of like the Fonz. He was like the cool kid in our class, right? And she and he broke up a couple of days before Valentine's Day. And so I plucked up the courage to go out. Yeah, right. I go out to Karen Hardwick, and I'm like, can I have a kiss, please? And she was like, sure. And so we both closed our eyes, and I go in like this. And she wraps her mouth around mine and sticks her tongue in my mouth. And we both pull away at the same time, and we both go, what the heck was that? Right? And I'm like, what did you just do? And she said, what did you? I said, I was just kissing you. She said, oh, well, I was like, what did you do? She says, well, it's a French kiss. I was like, can you show me what that is? It's like, please. And she said no and ran off. So I go up to my best friend, Gary Veal, and I'm like, you got to show me how to French kiss. And he's like, bog off. There's no way I'm going to. It's like, no. Like, how do you do it? I don't know how to do it. And he's like, well, eventually I've managed to persuade him. We go into the boys' bathroom. He's like, you go like this. Right. And then you stick your tongue in her mouth. I was like, that's
Oh, stop,
disgusting.
stop your bad self. Just stop. I am sure the 8th and 9th graders were thrilled, and I'm sure their teachers
Oh, they were, because
well,
we did sex ed at the same time. It was all fine. It was cross curriculum.
well, nowadays 8th and 9th graders could probably teach us a thing or two. But
yeah, right.
So you do a few personal stories. Boy, when you find a story,
yes,
in particular, like fairy tale, folktale, the ones that make up the mass of sort of your repertoire, the bulk of it. Tell us a little bit about you. And I don't, essentially just like boom, boom, boom. What is your process? Like, for example, I could tell you, I find it, I read it, I find other variants. I talk about it a bunch. Eventually, I write down a very, light version of it. It's almost like bullet pointed, so I can remember the actual, plot points. And then I tell it really badly about 100 times.
Right.
But everybody, it's true. Everybody has a sort of a rubric. What is yours?
So my rubric is find a story that talks to me, that speaks to me, that I resonate with. I will let it sit for a while. I'll go back to it and see if I still like it, and if it still speaks to me. And if it does, then I'll do a little research about where the story comes from and the culture of the story, so that I get an idea of the clothes that people might have worn, and the food that they might have worn, or might have eaten. And they might have worn the food as well. I don't know. Maybe put banana skins on their head. Who knows? And sometimes if it's a culture I am totally unaware of, or a country that I'm totally unaware of, I'll try and find some music from the country, and then I will start to look for other variants of the story while I'm doing that. This is all part of my research part, so I'm looking for another version. I'm also looking for the culture of where the story comes from. And then once I've done all that and I found some variants, then I will start to write my own version out. And it's basically a first draft story, but then I will break it down into bullet points.
So, okay, so the way around. I do the bullet points. And
right. And then, because what I want to do, the point of me writing it and putting it into my own vernacular is so that I can solidify it in my mind as this is the process of the story. These are the words that I will use and I want to use. And of course, that all goes out the window as soon as you start practicing it and telling it anyway. And then the bullet points are just to make sure that I've got it in order. And then I start practicing it, and practice it 100 times, take it out in front of some people. And if it goes down well, then I'll keep telling it. If it kind of falls a little bit flat, then I'll go back to it and I'll record it and I'll listen to it and see, dispassionately as one can. I'll listen to it and I'll be like, all right, that's not really working right there. I can see why people are not understanding it. Because sometimes, as a book writer, you probably know this. You'll write something in a book and you'll be like, this is brilliant, it's perfect, and send it off. And someone will say, well, I didn't understand this bit. And you read back and it's like, oh my God, I missed a whole bit out.
That's what editors are for. I was an editor for 12 years.
Right.
That's what editing is for. But you cannot be your own editor. And interesting what you were saying about going back and listening to it. I have done, but usually I found, and I want to ask your opinion about this, I found that the audience is the most brilliant editor of all.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Right. And, we say something that we know is so funny, and they are
right.
Nothing. And you're like, oh my goodness. And then you accidentally, extemporaneously come up with some comment, and they are on the floor. Or you think something is going to be touching, and they're looking at you like, I got nothing. I got nothing. And you're waiting for that rail to come that they're going to drag you on. So I kids too, because adults will have a level of studied politeness.
Yes.
But with children,
they let you know
rail, it's torn. It was never there.
Yeah.
Simon, you know that and they'll either howl or they'll say things like, "I hate that story."
Right. Yeah.
Another for you a little.
So I did miss part of my process out. If it's a story that I'm not sure of, I'll tell it to my kids first, and I'll ask them what they think.
Okay.
And Aiden was one of my best editors for my stories. He was like my business partner for the longest time. He was my journeyman storyteller, if you will, following me around, helping me set up and everything from the age of 6, you know. Actually, from the age of 5, he would come around and help me set up until about the age of 12, and then he'd had enough. I burnt him out, I think. And
No,
Perry,
he became too cool for you.
yes, he did.
All of them did. I had my youngest, who I would introduce as my secretary, and from the time she was about 3, 4, 5, and then she went to school. But yeah, so our storytellers' children. I mean, they'll be in therapy forever.
Maybe. Well, they'll be great writers.
Probably.
I think about Bill Lepp's kids, you know, because they're like homeschooled and they go everywhere with him. It's like, wow, that's going to be a really good book one day. But Perry's,
you know, Perry's, if all our children write books,
right? Yes, right.
Because they'll have lots to say. You know,
I know.
I just got together years ago at Jonesboro, at the oh gosh, the after party, the big party that's up on behind the and they all they told stories and they made up a song about being storytellers' kids, and it included having to wear vests.
Oh no.
I believe the word macrame was in there somewhere too. I was dying.
Long purple silk scarves.
Yes. Bobbly earrings, you know, patchouli.
Oh, there you go. I think the patchouli has kind of edged its way out now. I don't think there's much of that. You don't know? I haven't been.
They were great. The kids were great. But back to you.
Yeah, my daughter's still a really good critic. I'll tell her a story and she'll be like, that doesn't make sense, and like, I don't like that the way that ends. I mean, she was so funny. Like I was working on this whole set of like news stories, and she said, "Daddy, your endings are really weak." And then my friend Papa Joe came over, and I ran the stories through him, and he said, "You know, Simon, you need to work on those endings. They're not strong as they should be." And Perry looked at me, and I looked at her. She was like, "I told you so."
Wow, nothing like an "I told you so" editor.
I know. She's absolutely brilliant. So I'd love it when she.
Yeah. Well, she can have a future.
Yeah, right.
All right, this is your time right now.
Okay.
To tell a story.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking the other day about how 3 and 5 minute stories were such a wonderful sort of kind of hard hitting and fun, and we're only ever able to do them during Olios.
Yeah, I hate 5-minute stories.
So fun, Simon, to have like a set at Jonesboro that is called Rat-a-tat-tat or whatever you want to call it, and it's 3-minute stories, and storytellers tell a 3-minute story, tag the next person, 3-minute story, tag the next person.
That would be fun.
Oh, so I know you have some like just
all right then,
stories on the head of a pin kind of thing.
All right. So I'm going to tell this story, which is already a short story, but I'm going to make it even shorter. It's a story from Ireland. It's an Irish story. Oh, I hope Liz Weir's not watching. She might tell me off.
Liz will find you.
She will. She'll hunt me down and cut my tonsils out.
Tell it.
Once upon a time, there was a lad called Sean, and Sean is one of those people that we all know. He is kind of person that knows all the best jokes, all the best stories, all the best songs. But if you need help, he's gone. Well, it was the haying season, and the whole village was getting together to visit each other's fields to help with the haying. And Sean was like, "See ya." And off he went. He went to the other side of the village, walking down this road. And he's thinking, it's a beautiful day today. The sun is out, the sky is blue, it's marvelous. All I need is a princess to come by on a carriage, fall in love with me, and I'll be married, and I'll never have to work a day again in my life. What am I saying again? I've never worked a day in my life. And on he went. He heard this tapping. And at first he thought it was a bird that was breaking a nut. And he thought, now that's a thing I'd like to see. So he followed the sound along the brick wall and the stone wall and peered over the top. But it wasn't a squirrel. It wasn't a bird. It wasn't anything cracking open a nut. It was one of the wee people. And he was tapping on the sole of his shoe with a hammer. Now, Sean knew that where there's one of the little people, there's a pot of gold. And so he climbed over the stone wall, as quiet as a mouse, as carefully as a ninja mouse. And he leapt down and grabbed the wee man. He says, "Well, hello there." "Well, hello there. And how are you doing?" "Oh, I was doing a lot better before you came along." Well, Sean tried to get out of this little man where his pot of gold was. And he told him where it was. But it was so convoluted in the directions that he gave that Sean knew that he would never find it. And so he says, "You're going to take me there." And so the wee gentleman, against his wishes, led Sean over hill, down dale, through forests, over bushes, until they came to this field that was filled with poppies. "It's in the middle of this field here." "Well, this is a big field and there's a lot of poppies there. Now you have to show me exactly which poppy it's underneath now." Right then." And he led Sean through the field. Now Sean had a neckerchief on, a scarf, if you will. And when the little man showed him where it was, and Sean asked him how deep down it was buried, the wee man says, "It's about 4 feet down and the ground's not too soft right now. And you haven't got a shovel." "I haven't, but I'll use this scarf to mark this spot." And he took the scarf off his neck and he tied it around the flower. And he looked at the wee man and says, "Now you have to make me 3 promises. You have to promise me that you'll not move that scarf away." "All right, I'll promise not to take the scarf away. But you also have to promise not to move the plant anywhere else." "All right, I promise not to move the plant." "And you have to promise me not to move the pot of gold or the gold that's in it underneath from the plant." "All right, now put me down." And so Sean put the wee man down and he vanished. Sean ran back home as fast as he could and got a long-handled shovel. And he ran back as fast as he could with a long-handled shovel. And he looked at the field and his jaw fell open. As far as Sean was aware, the wee gent hadn't removed his scarf from that poppy plant. And as far as Sean was aware, he hadn't moved that poppy plant to another spot in the field. And as far as he was aware, the pot of gold had not been moved. But what Sean was absolutely 100% sure of was that the wee gentleman had put scarves exactly like his on every single poppy plant. Now, Sean may have been lazy, but he was shrewd. And so with that long-handled shovel, he went and collected all of those scarves. And he started his own business, Sean's Red Scarf Shop, and lived a very long time ago. The end.
Now, I have to ask you, did you write that? Did you find a scrap of it and then you created the rest around? I want to know now. I want to go take us backward.
Okay, so I found the story.
What fun.
And I liked it. I think it was in a Jeremiah Curtin book. And he's an interesting guy to look up.
Okay, wait.
Jeremiah.
I want to remember his name, and I want the listeners to remember his name if they want to take a minute and write it down. Jeremiah.
Okay. Jeremiah Curtin. Curtin, like, you know.
The curtain that you open and close?
Yeah, I'm going to write his name down right here.
You know that particular motif, and you can probably find it in the Storyteller Source book, Margaret Reed McDonald's book. That particular motif of hiding in plain sight by making everything the same also appears in one of the Hans Christian Andersen stories where a dog does that with a door to protect his master. It appears in the legend of King Christian of Denmark. You know, it's a book I had worked on where everyone wore a yellow star in Denmark to protect the Jews. It's a legend. And now I have not heard of this one.
Yeah, I love it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So you found this piece, and then what?
I found this piece, and I was kind of, you know, I just started talking with my Irish voice and walking around the house trying to get into Sean's head to see what kind of guy he was, because the book was he was a bit of a slovenly kind of guy.
I'm going to interrupt. Someone here just said there is a picture book of it called Clever Tom and the Leprechaun. Thank you, Joey Talbert.
Joey, there we go.
Neat. Okay. So I didn't interrupt you, but I wanted to make sure that everybody saw that.
Yeah. So this, hang on, is that going to pop up? It should pop up. It's not popping up.
Under comments.
There we go. Oh, there it is. Jeremiah Curtin. All right. So, yeah, I didn't like the way the book portrayed the story of Sean, because I think that he was just like this slovenly kid, right? And I thought that, you know, that there's a lot of anti-Irish sentiment, and, you know, a lot of people think the Irish are they're lazy and
lazy
worth.
Lazy
Yeah.
Jack. tales.
Right. And
Now,
they're worthless.
every culture has it.
Right. Okay.
Every culture. In Spain, my family is from Galicia, my father's people. I mean, I was born in Cuba, his parents were born in Cuba, and my mother's, but his family goes back to Galicia. And Galicia, people from Galicia are known as, or Galicia, are known as Gallegos. And there is an entire body of dumb Gallego stories. Gallegos are meant to be blundering and kind of like boom, 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 boom. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't understand what you are saying to me. That is the Gallego. Right. And then you have the oh gosh, in the
there's the Gotham stories.
The Fools of Helm.
Yeah, and Gotham.
Laura here. We need Laura here. But we're getting some great comments. I'm sorry that they're just the two of us. I mean, I can't respond.
I know, right?
But I will later, and so will Simon. We'll go back and we'll make comments back to you guys. So anyway, all right. So that's really interesting. So then you walk around using this Irish voice. You kind of the character. You played with it a little to make the sort of the aspersions cast.
Right.
Good Irish people.
Yeah, right. So I just want him to be a bit of a knave rather than like a lazy good for nothing. And so at the end of the story, it is a good word. At the end of the story, he just sees the field filled with scarves, and that's the end, right? And I'm like, no, he's got to do something. Like he's either got to go and look for the gold.
I so knew you had added that.
Yeah,
I knew it. But you know what?
What?
The only reason I knew it is because it felt modern. It did not feel modern until that moment. And that's why I asked you if you wrote it or found it. Because for one thing, the idea of becoming a businessman and selling scarves didn't sound, I mean, if he'd sewn them all together and made a sail and made himself a ship to go off to find, better shores, something about it felt new, like more of this world.
Right.
But it's a great story. It's a great story.
So now I'm gonna have to look at it again and figure out.
No, I love it. No, I have a question.
But I like playing with stories, and sometimes I do change them.
Oh, Sarah De Beer from Wexford. The wee man is a clurican. I know that I'm mangling this pronunciation. Please forgive me. Clurican.
Jack is the guy.
Jack is the guy who is the life of every party.
Yeah, he is.
Okay,
He
really
I love
is. That. I love that.
Yeah.
So here's another question for you, sir.
Okay.
What is the story now? I mean, I have one actually. If I were to say choose one story that you really want to tell and you just don't have it, it's not letting you, or it's not happening. It's the same thing we discussed, that it was difficult. Oh, someone said have him be a peddler.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea. I saw that.
Yeah, thank you, Jane Dorfman.
She's excellent.
So, what is the one story? And I'll tell you what mine is, but you go first.
Other than Beowulf.
What?
Other than Beowulf.
Other than Beowulf, the great saga, because you
so
something simple.
So one of my favorite stories, it was one of the first stories that I remembered as a child and would tell as a child, and that's the Faithful Hound of the story of Gelert in Wales. As a kid, we would go to Bethgelert, which is the Faithful Hound is when this guy, so it's Prince Llewellyn, he grows up, he's given a dog as a pet, and a greyhound, not a greyhound, a wolfhound, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as he gets bigger and bigger and bigger. He decides to get married, and he still brings the dog was the best man at the wedding. His wife has a baby, they go hunting, they leave the baby with a nursemaid back at the hunting lodge, and all of a sudden, while they're out hunting, Gelert, the dog, turns round and goes back home. And Prince Llewellyn's like, where's the dog gone? And it's like, headed back. All right, we got to chase after the dog because something must be wrong. They go chasing back after the dog, and the dog comes out of the hunting lodge, face covered in blood. And he thinks he's killed the baby. And so he takes his sword and plunges it in the side of the dog. And as the dog howls, there's the sound of a cry coming from under one of the tapestries that are being pulled down. And they find the baby, and then they find the wolf that Gelert killed.
Yes.
That Gelert killed. Yeah. And so this village is called Bethgelert, which means the grave of Gelert, the dog. and there's a stone there, and there's like the story is written there and everything. It's a story that I love. And
well, it's that motif of death of the faithful character,
right,
death of the faithful character,
right.
But it's a powerful story. All right, so let me play this for a minute. No. Tell me what is happening that's keeping you from telling me.
Because I don't like. So I'm not really stuck with the story. I mean, I've told it a few times, but it's such a deep story and such a hard one to listen to that I don't necessarily want my audience to.
Right. Okay.
To feel that.
Right.
Right.
Because we do not want to take them to a place we can't get them out of. It's almost like storytelling 101. If you take them into the woods, you got to get them home safe. If they're going to go fight the Gorgon, somehow they either have to beat them or they have to escape. So the problem, it sounds like, because I have this with a couple of stories, is when you get to that place that with a story that is not going to have a happy ending, in a way, you feel like you're betraying part of the craft. This is my opinion. This is not,
Okay. Yeah. No,
this is not some kind of like a standard of any form in storytelling. So anyone is out there, this is just my personal opinion. I think those stories are critical. They're important. But I believe that as a listener, as a listener in an audience, story to me is meant to show me there's a way to survive this very hard world at times.
Right.
And I don't mind suffering in the story. And I don't mean watching it. I mean as an empath, feeling it. But you have to get me out somehow. You've got to give me something. So maybe in the telling, when you take it to that place, something happens with the death of that dog. My father told me once that there's something called a domeguin. It's a kind of finch in Cuba.
Okay.
And that the domeguin can't be put in a cage. And I said, why? And he said, it dies. And I said, really? She said, yes, they always die. And so a handful of domeguins paid for the freedom of all of them into perpetuity. So maybe the death of the dog changes the town or the man or the village or their perception of the dogs, of dogs in general. Because maybe other people didn't treat their dogs as well, and he has great affection for it until
absolutely, yeah,
until he thinks this has happened. I don't know. That's a tough one, but I also think these stories are important. And here's the thing: say we're going to do a night of hard stories. Janice is right. Context is everything.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: when you if you were going to do a night, we're going to do a night of hard stories. You know what? Got enough therapy in my everyday life.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So, it's interesting. That's interesting. So how do you see your way through it? Well,
I mean, at the end of the story, that Prince Llewellyn is filled with remorse, and he tries to save the dog's life, and he realizes his mistake is like he didn't see the full picture, right? But at the same time,
it's Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. There is there's a white raven or crow. Now I can't remember. Somebody, if you know this, please put it in there. It's the one about the king goes away or the knight and then comes back and is told by the raven or the crow.
Knocks the cup out of his hand.
Unfaithful, and of course he kills or he either kills or curses the raven. Anyway, that is the reason. It's a pourquoi that all of the blackbirds, rooks, ravens, magpies are no longer this white color, which we won't get into that, and of course all the significance of of color, and some of it has to do with night and day, not just race. But
right, yeah.
But in any event, that comes up again and again.
Right.
The idea of kill the messenger. In this case, it was kill the messenger. In this case, it was mistaken. Well,
it's the same thing as the faithful hound, because the king is about to drink this poisoned wine. And that's why the bird knocks it out of his hand. I know the story. I just can't think of it right now, but I know that's what happens. It's driving me nuts. Come on, Janice, you must know the story. You've got an encyclopedic brain. Come on.
Yeah. No, I have, where is it? Over here. I have an encyclopedia.
Oh, there you go.
The OED. No, that's the dictionary. I have the
That is.
Britannica. I'm that old.
I know.
No.
I
So,
always wanted to oh, hang on. Sarah De Beers just popping it up.
okay, and so is,
With
who else? Who
English
else?
Arabian Nights. Oh, that's Sinbad. No, it's not
I love
Sinbad.
watching it work since I'm just starting to, oh, hello, Annie Potts. Oh, it's a falcon in that one. Interesting. In the Arabian Nights, it's a falcon. In Chaucer,
Yes.
it's a different story. In Chaucer, it's Arabian. I mean, now I've got to go look it up when we're done.
I know. We're both going to do that.
And I've got toilets.
It is acting in fear. That's right. I'm picking cucumbers. Leave me alone.
Look at Janice on that go. I'm picking
Go, Janice.
alone.
So
No one's bothering you, child.
I'm
So,
sorry, Janice. We love you.
all right. So can I tell you the one I love? I'm trying to tell and
Yes.
doesn't work
Yes.
yet.
Yes.
Because it doesn't have a horrible ending, but it does have a painful one. So the 30, 60-second sort of synopsis is there is a nobleman, a lord. So you can make him a king if you wanted to, but in the story he's a lord. And he lives in a very forbidding sort of an unwelcoming castle structure by the sea. He has a grandchild that he will not speak to and will not look upon, because when she was born, his beloved daughter died giving birth to her. So he won't look on her face. He vowed he would never look on the child's face. And so it's a Cinderella motif. The child grows up in the kitchens. Because, of course, he treats her badly, that gives tacit permission, like all abuse stories, for everyone else in the castle to have her do their work, or to kick her around, or to play jokes on her and lock her out so that she stays out in the moors all night and, and it's a cold. And the only real friend she has is an old cook, bibbity bobbity, bibbity bobbity, bibbity bobbity.
Bobbity boo.
Yeah. And a goatherd. And the goatherd is a young boy. And he's, oh no, I'm wrong. It's a gossard. It's a gooseherd, gossard. It's a gossard. And the only joy she really has is when she plays with the geese and with the boy. And then one day when she's playing, and now we're nearly at the, boom, it goes quickly to the end. A young man is riding through this sort of ribbon of road that runs through this meadow. And he's very nicely dressed. And he sees her, and she isn't nicely dressed, mind you. Remember, she's going to be wearing rags most of the time, Cinderella. But he finds her charming. She's laughing and dancing with this little boy. And he stops and talks to her. And then he invites her to, there's going to be this great sort of feast at the house of one of the lords. And he would love for her to come. And she says, I don't have anything to wear. And he says, what you're wearing is fine. You'd be my guest. And so he leaves. And the gossard says, let's go. And she says, I can't go like this. And says, he said he didn't care. So take him at his word. I mean, what do you have to lose? You're already at the bottom of the food chain, So they squabble for a while, and finally the gossard convinces her and accompanies her. And so she walks into this feast where people are dressed in all their finery, and there's all the nobility, and there are these feast tables, with the suckling pigs and the fruits and there is the Lord, and there is a young man who sees her, and he's the same guy, and he cuts across the room and he says, you came, and everybody turns to look, and everyone just sort of and much like Cinderella, he asks her to dance. And the gossard it's not who you think. The bibbity bobbity, the magical character, the mentor character, ends up being the boy. And the geese all come around her, and they turn into this white dress, or maybe it's a shimmering dress. And he starts to play his flute, and so her hair goes up, and she looks beautiful and whatever, and he dances with her, and he ends up being the son who the father was throwing this feast. And the father says, who is this? He says, I don't know who she is, I don't care who she is, but I'm marrying her. And unlike most stories, the father's like, well, there's some magic involved, so you might as well not fool with it. Yeah, I guess you ought to marry her. And the way the story ends, she marries the young man, lives quite happily, except for one thing. Her grandfather never would look on her face. He sat in his chair, which he had turned towards the sea, the gray sea. His tears would fall on the arms of that wooden chair and eventually made little troughs. If he leaned forward, there would trickle on the stone and down to the sea as he laid his head and wept year after year. And so there are two different endings. And that is why the sea is salty. Or, but had he ever backed away from his stubborn nature, had he once lifted his eyes and looked at his granddaughter, he would have seen, I can't do it, his daughter's face.
Wow.
Of course, she looks just like her mother. The child, he mourned because he was never going to look on her face again, right?
Yeah.
And the entire time, there she was. I mean, yes, yes, Will, it's the choices we make. Janice, you have a version of that story, No Magical Dress. The version I have is from the, I think it's Arbuthnot anthology, that one that I adore. It's ancient and it has
Buffnot.
Stories you can. Arbuthnot. Arbuthnot? How do you say it?
I don't know. I just never heard. I've never heard it before.
It's just so beautiful. Yes, the second ending is better. I agree.
Yeah, I do too.
Right. So, and the other one makes it another quick story. So what I'm trying to tell it, no matter how I try to tell it, the pieces feel Well, you ask me questions now.
All right. So in regards to that story, there's also the whole. Hang on, what's this? So someone asked for a source of that story that you just told, because I agree with Anne that yes, I would love.
When we're done, and y'all, I'm sorry, I'm diabetic. I've got to eat something. I've got
That's all right.
With Marmite.
That's Marmite. Yes.
Marmite.
The food of champions.
The many trips to the UK, land that I love.
I know, right? And then
I will either put the link onto it, or I have the actual book. I will take a picture of the story and post it on the comments, because this will stay up on site.
Yes.
Right, Simon?
It'll stay up on my Facebook page. Yes. Yes.
So I'll put it on there later today.
Okay, that would be brilliant, because that's a story I really like, and I'd love to find that. It is okay. So Janice says it's a version of a story called Tattercoats, which we know. Yeah, right.
Yes, it is. But I love this particular version, and the writing. Oh, you guys, I have to take a picture and just post the story. It's so. The language is so seamless.
Yeah, that's what a lot of times that's what draws me into a story. It's the language of it. But yeah, so the other thing that you have to bear in mind as well is that a king could not go back on their word in stories, because they often did in real life.
He was supposed to be a king. He was supposed to be a what is he? Well, they keep calling him a lord. So
right. Oh, May Hill. Okay, I guess that's May Hill. Arbuthnot.
Arbuthnot. So Arbuthnot.
Is that what you were trying to say?
Why you want to ask me why? Am I doing your job for you? Are you going to ask me why?
No.
I'm having a hard time telling it, or why?
Yes, tell me. Please tell me, Carmen. Why are you having such a hard time telling that story? Because it seems that you've got it down and that you should be telling it.
No. I have bullet points down. I cannot. I mean, I think I will eventually. What I love about it, because I didn't ask you that. You should answer that first, and then I promise I will answer. What do you, love about the one with the dog, with the faithful dog, the faithful hound? Didn't ask you that, and I would like to know, because there's something that kind of grabs us. There's a reason that we think, "Ooh, I want to do that." Right. What do you love about it? What's the theme?
So the theme is lack of justice. The dog was looking after the child.
So it's someone doing the right thing.
Right. It's about doing the right thing. Yeah. And I my mum read that to me or told me that story when I was 6 or something like that. And I remember crying and then saying, and I would cry and I'd say, now read it to me again. And she would read it to me again. And I'd cry and I'd say, read it to me again. It was just one of those stories. It's just that there was something about it that's like really got into me. And I don't know why. I have, and one day my therapist and I will probably stumble upon it and say, that's the reason.
I am so glad, though, I asked you that question, because this just made that story so much more interesting in respect to you and the reasons you're drawn to it. And the fact that your mother read it to you when you were so young. But I would venture my years in Cornell and therapy as an analyst, as a psychoanalyst. Dare I venture, because we don't know each other that well, but dare I venture suggest that you're a very kind-hearted person, despite all of the, you can be very quick-witted and very funny, but that you are very.
I try to be
empathic.
Yes,
kind-hearted.
I am.
Oh my goodness, a 6-year-old with a kind heart would just be devastated by that story.
I was, but I loved it. There was something about that story that I loved, and I don't know, maybe it was. God, a thought just came to me. Maybe I'm
El Negro, exactly.
A thought just came to me. Maybe I'm secretly masochistic.
Nah. Why? Makes you shudder. Makes me shudder.
No, not masochistic. What's the right word?
Psychological pins. No. I mean, I think I'm onto something with that. I also think it also speaks to these fairy tales that we read and we're horrified and go, how could they read these Grimm's fairy tales to children? I mean, how could they put, you know what? Children are bloodthirsty little things.
Yes, they are.
And their sense of justice is swift and unequivocating. And they want evildoers punished. End of story. But then there's the gentle child, or the child who just literally physically feels things. And I remember having the story of Cinderella with the iron shoes that they had to wear and just weeping. And I didn't want anything nice to happen to them. They were awful.
Yeah.
But the very thought was just so upsetting. But at the same time, read it again.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Maybe the next time it gets read, it doesn't happen the same way. Maybe she just flies off to heaven. No, that would be a Hans Christian Andersen story.
Yeah, that'd be yeah. All right. Well, you have to ask me now about my story.
So, all right, I'm going to. I wasn't sure because you were just asking me questions. I didn't know if I had to switch tables on you. So, what are you up to these days?
No, you're supposed to ask me why I can't tell my story.
Oh, sorry. Oh my gosh, I can't do this very well. Why can't you tell the story, Carmen?
That's why all these people are
Carmen, why can't you tell the story?
All right. Oh God, Simon, I want to tell on a stage with you again. Please. Could we do a cabaret?
Yes, I want to do. We've talked about this.
Well,
if there is a producer out there who would put us both on the stage at the same time, we are interested.
Stop. Yes. But Dubby and Janice and I are doing the next cabaret. Not this year. Janice is going to be surprised by this, so they're not really because we talked about it. I want to do it live. But yes, I want to do something together.
I do too.
Fun.
And I think it would be fun with
this, and then I want to get back to you because I do want to say this because I'm having such a hard time with this.
Tell me, Carmen, why can't you tell the story?
Why can't I tell the story? I think. Therefore, I am. I think the grandfather's cruelty also smacks of such mulish stupidity. He's just and cruelty. I mean, there's nothing redeeming in him. And call me crazy, but I think even the dragon that sweeps down, Smog.
Mm-hmm.
In Tolkien, there wasn't anything really redeeming, but we understood him. He loved his treasure, and it was threatened. And he hated men because they raided him. Right. There was something that allowed you to see in. And when something is just flat, evil, cruel, whatever, or just good and precious and wonderful, and look, every time she brushes her hair, confetti and flowers fly, and she rides in on her unicorn. Either one of those makes me crazy. So I think part of it is trying to understand him. And Sarah de Beerseiger, the grandfather,
this is what
grieving. I think you're right, Sarah. I think that I have to see it. We have to know more of the. Sarah. I think we have to start with the death of the mother.
Yeah. This is what I was thinking too. It's like he loved his daughter so much that he, you know, it wasn't the fact that he didn't like the child, it was the fact that the child killed his daughter, and that just shook him so deeply down to the core that he couldn't bring himself to look at his daughter. And he was,
what if there's a phrase like she says, she took my child, son, I'll never look upon her face again, meaning his daughter at first. And so I will never look on your face again, because that makes the ending that's been tricky for me, that makes it really like, you idiot, if you just turned away from that window in your grief, you would see her face again in her child. Okay. Right. Yes, we are workshopping together. But you know what? You guys see us on stage when we have like worked for weeks and months on things, and it looks like it comes trippingly off the tongue, when actually we've done a lot of this.
Yeah, a lot of this. And sometimes you do it on the stage, and a storyteller will come up to you and say, I got a thought about this. And
yes.
and that's like, yeah, okay. So I got to tell you this. This is a crazy story. I was, I'm not going to say where it was, but I did a gig somewhere in New England, and some people came in and watched it. And at the end, as I was like talking to the kids afterwards and with the librarian and everything, I found this piece of paper on my desk. On my little, sorry, I have a wooden box. It's not a desk.
Somebody had a suggestion.
They didn't. They had a whole number of critiques. You need to do this, 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 and this. You say this too much. And I was kind of like, wow, you didn't have the courage to have a conversation with me. You just left. You just let, that's not cool. I'll have a conversation with you, but don't leave a list. Don't leave a list of things that you think I did wrong, because there might be a reason why I'm doing it this way, and it really ticks me off. But if someone comes up to me after a performance, I will give you as much time as I can and talk about stuff, because I want to hear from people. Like if they're upset by a certain part, well, why were you upset about it? How could I make you not be upset about it and still tell the story? Because I want to know those things. That's important.
Right. And when to me, it's important. We have that separation that we can hear.
Right.
That didn't work, or that didn't work. Yeah. Or most of us can. But that's amazing. That's a horrible but funny story.
I laugh. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, cheeky bastards. It's like.
Have you ever had somebody come up? Oh my gosh. Never mind. The thing is, here's the crazy thing. I am such an introvert. And I don't know about you. I know that there are several people I know, and I won't call you out, that are on here right now that are in the same boat. And we present as extroverts. But we actually, see my room, prefer this all by ourselves for 99% of our lives.
You're an omnivert.
No.
You are. An omnivert is someone that is okay being an extrovert, but they need to
talk when she didn't want to talk. Yeah, no. Well, but here's the thing. I really like people. I don't know about you, but I think most of us. Who said never met a man I didn't like? American Wit. Come on.
I don't know. Oscar Wilde.
Listen to Janice. Can't throw the rock and hide your hand. Tap.
Yeah, right.
All right. So I told a story. This is years ago, and I was a bit cheekier and younger then, considerably younger. As I was telling Simon, it's the formaldehyde.
Yes. We both have little bottles of formaldehyde, which we take little shots at before we go to bed. Yes.
But
I'm actually 84.
Hey man, soak in it, drink it, whatever it takes. No, yes. I'm liking this stuff. It's happening.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm at a festival. I tell a story, and it's a story called Foundations that I still was learning. It had happened, but I was very unwieldy. Will Rogers, thank you. Never met a man I didn't like. So I knew American Wit, couldn't bring up the name. So I get off the stage, and we had just rollicking, crazy fun. Or so I thought. Maybe I wasn't in the same tent as this particular sweet person who came up. Now, here's the interesting thing. It was a young man, younger than I was, who came up. And in the story, I'm trying to get a girdle on this very difficult woman, not physically, but just a difficult person.
Right.
And during this process, because I'm working in the foundations department of a department store, a big department store, even though I've used talcum powder, which is supposed to help get it, there are all kinds of tricks and stuff. And it just goes. And if you've ever, women who ever wore girdles or had grandmothers or mothers who wore them know that when they come down, if they go down too quick, they'll start to roll. Like casing, like sausage casing, but they'll just roll. And
I did not know
went
that.
all the way to her knees, trussed her like a pig. She fell over in the dressing room. I fled for my life. The manager in the foundations department, who was fabulous, said, run, run. She'll grind your bones to make her bread. Just run, go out, I'll take care of this. She's a wonderful Southern woman. Well, that girdle story, I don't know what could be offensive in it. But this young man, and he had to be, I swear to you, he couldn't have been barely 30, said, that story wasn't really appropriate, was it? And it was daytime. But I mean, come on. These people watch HBO. And I said, what? He goes, I was with my mother and my grandmother, and they were mortified. And I remember looking at this sweet little boy, this little wunderkind, and I said, honey, I think the only one that was mortified was you.
Oh.
Dare I suggest that? And but I didn't say it in a mean way. And he just kind of looked at me, and then he started to laugh. And he said, I guess so. I said, did they say anything? Well, no, but I just can't imagine. They're very, they're Baptists. And I said, Baptists wear girdles.
Yeah.
And back in the day.
I guess.
Yeah. But, you just never know. And then you have the people who come up and say, I didn't like that story very much.
Yeah. And then they leave you with that. Like, why? I don't know. I just didn't like it. And it's like,
I say, you know what? I don't like every story I hear.
Yeah.
No, you just can't have it go in. It doesn't, people have a right to have their own reactions.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like, what was it that Gaumont or the Odeon that used to say we can't please all the people all the time? Or was it somebody else? Was it Homer that said that? I don't know.
No, it's a long screed of no, wait a minute. Homer, no, wait. Let's just say it's Homer.
Yes.
Because somebody's going to look it up.
They will. No.
After we're done.
I won't. I got other things I got to do. But
on here for an hour and 10 minutes.
Oh no, we haven't.
Yes, we have.
We have. Oh my gosh, we should go.
Resembling lives to return to. You all, thank you.
I don't know where my wife is. She went out biking with my son, so I was going to read, and then I never did. I sent it. I don't know what I was doing.
Well, I love today.
I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed this immensely. Barnum, that's right. It was Barnum. Of course, Jane comes up with that one. Smarty pants. We got. Or was it Lincoln? No, I think it was Barnum. I'm with Jane on that.
Thank you, Sarah and Jane.
Yeah.
All right, children. This has been wonderful.
It has been wonderful.
And I would love to come visit again sometime.
You can. You can visit anytime. Well,
okay, everyone, it is Simon's birthday.
Mwah, love you all.
Wish him happy birthday. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen, for joining me with this. It's absolutely brilliant. So yes, we'll do it again. Yay. Bye, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of my birthday. It's been a treat. And Carmen's gone. Thanks for being here. She obviously has things to do. And I'll be back on next Friday with more Friday with Friends. And there won't be a Wednesday Stories this week because I'm taking a little break because I have a ton of stuff that I need doing. But I'd like to thank Carmen for joining me today and see you soon. Take care. Bye.